"You make too much of it, brewer," Somerset snapped, raising his face into the wind as he rode. "The Lord went before them in a pillar of cloud, yes? Columna nubis, if you knew your Exodus. Black threads in the air, brewer. It puts the fear of Almighty God into those who might yet stand against us, and there is nothing wrong with that." The young Duke turned to look over his shoulder at the greasy trail still rising behind them. "The men must be fed, that's the long and short of it. What are a few peasant villages now, after all we've accomplished? I'd scorch the sky black if it meant the lads ate well, eh? Anyway, in this cold you'd think they'd welcome a good fire." "Yet the news will run ahead of us, my lord," Derry Brewer said, ignoring the rough humour. He was striving for politeness, though his stomach felt as if it touched his backbone and hunger gnawed at him. At moments like this he missed Somerset's father, for the old man's subtlety and understanding. The son was quick and clever enough, but there was no depth to him. At 25, Henry Beaufort had some of the military confidence men like to follow. He would have made an excellent captain. Unfortunately, he was in sole command of the Queen's army. With that in mind, Derry tried again to make his point. "My lord, it's bad enough that messengers run south with news of York's death, while we stop for supplies in every town. Our skirmishers loot and murder, and the men spend the full day catching up to them, while local lads race to warn the next village in our path. It's harder and harder to find food, my lord, when those who prefer to keep their goods have hidden them all away. And I'm sure you know why the men set fires. If they cover up crimes in each village we pass, we'll have the whole country in arms before we even see London. I do not believe that is your intention, my lord. I'm sure you could persuade a man to sell you his own children. I do not doubt it, brewer," Somerset replied. "You always seem to have a fine argument ready. Yet you have been too long a Queen's man." So confident was Somerset in his own rank and strength that he thought nothing of adding a certain insulting emphasis to the words. "Yes, that is the trouble, I think. There are times for your long plans of a certainty, for your French whispers, brewer. Perhaps when we reach London. I don't doubt you would have us wait patiently at all the local markets, bargaining or begging for bowls of stew or a fine capon or two, and you would see us starve." His voice rose in volume to carry to the marching ranks around. "Today is for these men. Do you follow? See our lads march a stripe down the country, miles wide of archers and men-at-arms, fresh from victory, with their weapons held ready. You can see by looking at them they have had a fine battle. See their pride!" The crescendo in his voice demanded a response, and the men around him cheered his words. Somerset looked smug as he faced Derry Brewer once again. "They have been blooded, brewer. They have brought enemies down. Now we'll feed them on red beef and mutton and turn them loose on London. D'you see? We'll make Earl Warwick bring out King Henry and humbly beg our pardon for all the trouble he's made." Somerset laughed at the thought, carried away by his own imaginings. "I tell you, we'll put the world to rights again. Do you understand, brewer? If the men ran a little wild in Grantham and Stamford or Peterborough or Luton, it doesn't matter. If they take the winter hams they come across, well, perhaps those men who owned them should have been with us making sure of York." He had the sense to drop his voice to a murmur as he went on. "If they cut a few throats or steal the virtue of a few country maids, I imagine it will fire their blood all the more. We are the victors, brewer, and you are not least among us. Let your blood seethe for once, without spoiling it all with fears and plots." Derry looked back at the young Duke, his anger poorly hidden. Henry Beaufort was charming and handsome, and he could speak in a great flow of words to bend someone to his will, yet he was such a young man. Somerset had rested and eaten well, while towns that had belonged to the Duke of York had been burned to the ground. Grantham and Stamford had been torn down, and Derry had witnessed horrors in those streets as cruel as anything he'd seen in France. It galled him to have a cocky young nobleman tell him the men deserved their reward. Derry glanced to where Queen Margaret rode ahead in a cloak of dark blue, her head bowed towards Earl Percy as they talked. Her 7-year-old son Edward trotted a pony on her other side, the boy's pale curls dipping with weariness. Somerset saw the spymaster's glance and smiled wolfishly, confident in his youth compared with the older man.